This is the second Sunday of a two-part series called Celebrate Your True Self. And, well, I guess maybe what I should do this morning is do a little review. Because I have a feeling somebody may have forgotten what I did last week, what I said last week. Then maybe some of you weren't here. But I do want to try to, by the end of this talk, try to get everyone motivated to have a life party and celebrate yourself. Last week, we established a metaphysical reason, beyond physical, spiritual. We established a reason for you and me to celebrate our true selves. And there were several reasons that we talked about, but the one primary, first and foremost, was you and God are one. This is based upon what is called the divine equation given by Jesus when he said, I and the Father are one. That was a profound metaphysical spiritual truth that he said. Now, we simplified that divine equation to a mathematical equation. 1 plus 1 equals 1. The divine equation has resulted in the spiritual teaching that the whole of spirit is present in its entirety at every point in space and at the same time. That alone should change lives. Let me say that again. Try to grasp the picture of what's being said here. The whole of spirit is present in its entirety at every point in space at the same time. Now, there's a word that we use in religion for this. It's called omnipresence, being present everywhere. Now, because you are a part of that whole, and the entirety of that whole is within you, then the false belief in separation is thrown out the window. We're not separated from God. It is impossible to be separated from God. This means that you are God in expression at every moment of every day of your life. Because you truly are the center of your universe, Charles Fillmore said that life for each of us should be a journey in jubilance. Live a journey of jubilance, he said. And so, last week, we made the decision that we were going to follow what Charles Fillmore has suggested and live a life and a journey of jubilance and have a celebration of our true selves. Eric Butterworth's advice in his book. When we plan our life party, if you remember, we want to attract others so that they can be transformed from the inside out like we have been. That's the reason for our party and celebrating our true selves. And in order to attract others, you remember last week I gave you 3 suggestions of what we should try to do in planning our party and attracting others. The first was be a center of love. To be a center of love means that knowing you're the center of your universe, you expand your universe. You draw a circle of love around everyone you meet. You draw a circle of love around every situation in your life. You draw all of this into your circle of love. That brings about a consciousness of transcendence where you and I rise above all of this discord and confusion and media and politics and social media frenzy. We then become an arbiter of love when we draw this circle of love that includes everything and everybody. The second thing I suggested was that we bless all others and all parties. Remember, I'm having my party, you're having your party, you're having your party. We're all having our own party, celebrating our own self. So we bless all others and their party. Love and bless those that are not having a party, like the hurting, the neglected, the marginalized. Love and bless those whose faith has been challenged. Love and bless those who haven't yet learned to recognize and celebrate their true self. Love the unloved. point others to the Christ within. And then the third thing I suggested last week was stop using common sense. Common sense tells you that you're going to continue making those same mistakes over and over and over again. Common sense tells you that you can't trust anybody. Common sense tells you you don't have any control over your life. Stop using common sense. The reason you can do that is because every one of us are uncommon and unique, with a great depth of untapped potential that we haven't yet found. Develop a way of life that uses uncommon sense, like, I am not what I was, I am what I will be. Since I and God are one, I will master my life and move toward victory and release all of those unborn possibilities of a limitless life that was so wonderfully exemplified with our story of the birth of Jesus the Christ. Now, that was last week. Today, I want to continue talking about some ways that we can celebrate our true selves. And remember, the reason for celebrating our true selves is not a selfish purpose. While we're having fun with our life party, it's not for selfish gain. The reason we need to be doing that is because that attracts others to wanting what we have, and they too can be transformed from the inside out. So, I think we would all agree that our Western society here in America today is pretty much ruled by social media and technology. But there are a couple of other major players that define our society that I have identified I wanted to mention. And the first one is speed, and the second one is accomplishment. Today, we go more places and we do more things in a shorter period of time and faster than ever before. You'd think speed would be good, but in our society, many times, speed brings unhappiness and stress. Because what happens, we get so accustomed to doing it all in a hurry that we ultimately operate through the lens of there's so much to do and so little time to do it. So we become addicted to speed. Then there's accomplishment. Oh, in our corporate world, it's all about climbing the ladder, the corporate ladder, and it's all about having more than the Joneses next door. This kind of life of addiction to accomplishment brings stress and chaos because we adopt an attitude of whatever it takes, even if it hurts people along the way. And when we do these things, when we become excessively dependent upon speed and accomplishment, we're not celebrating our true self. So the first thing I would like to suggest to you, this will be number 4 in the series, is pause and say grace. Pause and say grace. The need to pause and get the thought of hurry and its related fear out of our minds is critical. Isaiah chapter 30, verse 15 says, "In returning and rest you shall be saved. In quietness and in trust shall be your strength." I found a quote by Robert Louis Stevenson, and he said this: "Extreme busyness, whether at school or college, church or market, is a symptom of deficient vitality. It's no good speaking to such folk. They cannot be idle. Their nature is not generous enough." Now, what Stevenson is inferring is that it's possible that a high-energy life could be camouflaging a larger spiritual vacuum. Butterworth said in his little book, "We need to rediscover the pleasure of pausing, the art of doing nothing. We need to make time to sit on a park bench or a rocking chair, or to relax in a hot tub where we can let large clouds of nothingness drift through our minds. In this way, we can let our souls catch up with our bodies and get in tune with the rhythm of the universe." Now, there are plenty supporting scriptures for this concept. Just a couple of 3. "They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Be still and know that I am God." And Ecclesiastes 3:1, for everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. So, beginning today, let us all be resolved that we want rush and that we don't necessarily and always have to do it now. I know that in my past has been one of my biggest challenges. There was a time when I had pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed so much that I was on an airplane in Minneapolis, Minnesota, flying back to Dallas-Fort Worth. I died. They called the ambulance, took me to the hospital in Minneapolis. I was in the hospital for 3 days there. They flew me home. I was in the hospital for 10 more days. My body died. They ran every test known to mankind, including 2 spinal taps in 10 days. They found nothing wrong with me. Finally, at the end of all of that, the doctor threw his hands up and said, I'm going to write a diagnosis of acute stress-induced migraine. That's what it is. But what had happened was that I was living my life in speed. It was all about filling every day with as much as I could. And it was at that time I determined I was going to change my life. I was going to pause and say grace. Now, there's grace. That's my favorite word in the English language. I love grace. Here's how I like to explain what grace is. First, remember, you are the activity of God in expression where you are. Let that sink in. You are the activity of God in expression. So grace is the natural flow of this creative process where God's love flows through you. Grace. The activity of God's love is working in you and through you constantly. Grace fulfills divine law in terms of sustaining you in spite of yourself. You do not have to earn grace. It is true that in some ways grace is unmerited, but that doesn't mean that you can earn grace, because it can't be earned. The most hardened criminal on earth is still loved by God and can find forgiveness and rehabilitation through any activity of love that transcends law. Here's what Butterworth said from the book. Grace is simply an explanation of a wonderful facet of the activity of God in you. It's not something to work for, to develop. It simply is. It's an assurance, an explanation of why things never are quite hopeless. It's a wonderful assurance and explanation of why we never receive the full harvest of the error we sow, and why we always receive a little more good than we sow. Pause and say grace. The second thing I want to suggest that we do today is get rid of our crutches. Has anybody ever injured your leg a couple of days before a major event and you had to go to that major event on crutches? Well, it's not fun. No one likes to go to a party on crutches. So ask yourself this morning, what kind of crutches are you bringing to your celebration? Friends? Teachers? Doctors? Ministers? Alcohol? Drugs? Coffee? Food? Oh, somebody groaned on that one. I hear you there, buddy. Was that you, Mark? Food. Relationships. The list goes on and on. It never ends. A crutch can be anyone or anything upon which we have an excessive dependency. And in our Western society, I'm afraid excessive dependency is the norm. Excessive dependency finds itself rooted in a misleading concept that most of us are raised with from birth. We're raised with this concept that we came here with nothing. We came here empty. And our job throughout our life is to just fill it. So we spend our life looking for love in all the wrong places. finding strength through synthetic and unhealthy stimulants, trying to mass all of the stuff we can. Have you heard the old saying, the man who dies with the most toys wins? It's not true. And we surround ourselves by toxic people. The good news is you can throw those crutches away. I would suggest one of the first crutches you look for in your closet would be the crutch of, that's just the way I am. Or the crutch of, well, that's just the way it is. You see, that crutch is an admission of weakness from the get-go. But throwing that crutch away allows us to rise higher and higher by realizing our true relationship to the divine flow, in and out and through. You see, excessive dependency is a frustration of your potential in that flow. So know that you were created by God in His image likeness with limitless potential to do and do well all that needs to be done without excessive dependence upon anyone or anything. Here's what Butterworth said in his book. You can be free. You can overcome. You can get rid of any and all crutches, not by willpower, but by the outforming process of consciousness. It's not will, but willingness. God wills it, so say yes. And that leads me to the third suggestion I have today. Once you begin throwing away your crutches, you are ready to step up to your future. And that is really important for us to do here at the end of the year, beginning the new year. It's a perfect time for us to step up to our future. Here in about 20 days, on one day in a short period of time, Happy New Year is going to be repeated billions of times in a very short period of time. Well, that's a lovely thing to say, Happy New Year, but here's the bad news. Well, it could be the good news, depending on how you take it. The new year will bring absolutely nothing new for you if you're the same old you. The new year will bring nothing new for you without there being a new you. The new year is for sure an opportunity for us to start fresh in many areas of our life, and it's also a perfect opportunity for us to build on our past experience as we begin to go forward into the future to achieve anything we want to conceive or believe, but we have to change within first. Here's a strange idea that I would suggest to you as you begin to step up to your future. After the New Year's is over, instead of thinking back to work, think onward to work. I didn't get an amen on that one, did I? Instead of thinking back to school, think forward to school. Instead of things getting back to normal, going toward normal. In the coming year, practice the art of looking forward with faith. Live each day as if it were the midpoint in eternity. Live each day as if it were the midpoint in eternity, because today is the center of your eternity. It's the center of your universe, and it's the center of God. Every Sunday, we affirm, wherever I am, God is. So I would suggest that you and I, this coming year, make that affirmation the foundation of everywhere we go, every thought we think, every word we speak, every deed we do. Wherever I am, God is. And if you do that, and if I do that, we'll step into our future with a happy new year, a happy new awakening to our potential, and a happy new release of our imprisoned splendor, and a happy new you. In conclusion this morning, I'd like to leave you with this blessing. Live forever and enjoy it. Live forever and enjoy it. Like most so-called senior citizens, about every 6 months, I have to go out here to the doctor and They take blood and have labs done, and a week later I have to go back to my doctor, and she tells me if my red corpuscles and my blue corpuscles and my purple corpuscles and my black corpuscles are all in line and breathing properly. And so I did that a couple of weeks ago, and last week I went out and she gave me the report, and we sat down and she took the papers out and slapped them, and she looked at me and she said, "Look at this. Everything is perfect. Everything in your blood work is absolutely perfect." Well, I kind of liked that. So I left that office, and I'd say within the next 3 or 4 hours, I probably said it 4 or 5 times. For a 68-year-old, I'm in great shape. And I have people pretty often say, for a guy, especially young people, they have a way of just rubbing it in. They'll say, for a man your age, you're doing pretty good. You all know that I love bluegrass music. One of my favorite bluegrass songs, the title of it is, "I Can't Add Years to My Life, so I'll add life to my years." You see, for most of my earthly life, I made a career out of staying young. And a few years ago, I jumped off of that wagon, and now in the last few months, I've kind of had a renewal of energy, and I am taking that career back up. A career of staying young. Why? It's not to live longer. It's to live more deeply. It's to add life to my years and not years to my life. Charles Fillmore, when he was well past 90, said, "I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm." He was over 90. He said, "I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm, and I spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me." So, again, living on earth longer of itself is not the answer. More important than living long is living deeply and loving deeply. So I'm going to wrap this morning up by reading verbatim the last few words of Eric Butterworth in his book, Celebrate Yourself. These are the last words in that book in closing. "All important is what you